Okay, so we are continuing with Daas Tevunos. We're in the middle of a new section, which is not sure exactly how to translate it, but it's talking about the various units of creation and the role of Jews within that, the concert of the world. Okay, so last time we said, he spoke about the idea that at first glance everything that exists seems kind of separate, and there's no rhyme or reason for anything. There doesn't seem to be some sort of a unifying system. But if you look deeper, there is a unifying system. That's the basic idea. But more than that, he says that perfection can only be achieved when all of the elements of creation are working together in unison, and they're each one completes the other. That's number one. The other idea that came about of this is that evil, the existence of evil unto itself, right, is evil. But when you see it as part of the entire system, then it finds its purpose and therefore becomes less evil, right? Okay. That was that. Let me see anything else. Oh, and then he also pointed out the idea that we only, right, since we have to look at the ecosystem, not just each individual creation. We have to look at the ecosystem as a whole. We don't fully see the entire ecosystem until the end of the creation, right? When the end of the creation is completed, we get to the point when Hashem reveals everything, then we can actually look back and see how each thing plays a role in the entire system, and then we can actually then ascertain whether that thing was good or not good, right? But unto itself, it may look like something that's negative and evil, but in reality, when you fast forward a couple of 100 years, and you'll see how it all fits in. Okay? Good. Oh, he also mentioned that in the beginning of the creation, right, we have the 7 days of creation. So each unit is created separately, right? Each day, and we see that's why he says there's a hierarchy, and within the hierarchy, each day represents a separate layer of creation. And then at the end, Hashem saw everything that he created, right? That's the kind of the unifying perspective. Right? First, there's like an individual perspective, and then towards the end conclusion, there's a unifying perspective. The unifying perspective is that Tov Moed, everything is very good, right? And that's why specifically by the unifying perspective, we say it's Tov Moed, right? Tov is Yetzer Tov, Moed is Yetzer Hara. In other words, the evil within the universe, when you look at it at Kol Asher saw that everything that Hashem created, then even the evil becomes Tov Ma'od. It becomes very good because it's part of the bigger picture. It's part of the ecosystem. Okay, so now again, that's, he didn't say that. I'm just adding to what I think he's getting it from. Okay, Amra HaNeshama. I'm expanding. Anyway, Amra HaNeshama. So the Neshama, after all of this introduction, Amra HaNeshama says Eilehem Dvarim Brurim. These things are very clear. Umiyushavim Alalev, and they're acceptable to the heart. But you still have to explain to me the idea of the uniqueness, the special place of Yisroel, that you told me you're going to explain. Because I don't see how that idea fits into this framework. So, Kuflamed. Omar HaSeichel. Bi'arti ha'inyonim ha'mischalfim I did explain that things that change in hashpo hagoyrmim hischalif hatoildos shehem amikrim hamisyaldim ba'olam. I did explain. He's saying that when you see changes in the world, you have to understand that they first change in hashpo, right? Everything that happens in the world has its root in hashpa. That's what he told us before. And before it can change in the world, it really has to experience a change in some kind of higher realms, right? So that's his introduction. So right, so variety of phenomena begins with variety of hashpa. Amnam hasiba harishonim lekolzeh. However, the first siba, the first cause to all of this, v'atam lehischalef hanyom b'hashpa, and the reason why hashpa can change and vary, zehu ha'inyan atolu b'Yisrael shezakarti lach. That's really the idea that it depends on Israel that I mentioned to you, right? In other words, right? So since we basically, his thesis is very simple, that since we understand that the world, we see that the world experiences change, right? Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, and we understand that those things originate from hashpa, and who is the being that is able to affect the hashpa from its very root? That's Klal Yisrael, right? So therefore, the place of Israel in this world, when it comes to the entire framework, is the main feature, is the main, the main switch, the main CEO, so to speak, which basically affects the entire corporation. Ve'ata afarish, but now I will explain. Hine HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael hu ke'av el benoi. Hashem, his relationship with Klal Yisrael is like a father to his son. Okay, that's what we see. Rabbi Akiva, right? It happens to be. I was just listening to a certain shir from Shir Zatzal, Baron Schechter, that right when it related to Shavuos, which we're working towards, is that right. So can you pass me that siddur? Mm-hmm. So the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos that Rabbi Akiva says, right? It says three things. Right? First, it starts out saying that there's a special chavivus, endearment to a person that he was created in tzelem, in the image of Hashem. Mm-hmm. But there's a chiba yaseira, that is an extra level of endearment that Hashem told him that he was created in tzelem. Step one. Step two is there's a special endearment for Klal Yisrael, shenikru bonim l'makom, that they're referred to as bonim l'makom, as sons to Hashem. And again, it says there's an extra endearment because they were called that. And the third level is Chaviv in Israel. There's an endearment to Klal Yisrael, Shnitun lehem kli chemda, that they were given the Torah, right? And again, Chiba Yisrael is an extra endearment that it was given to them. Okay, so my point. So there's a 3 level hierarchy. First level is Tzelem Elokim of Adam, then Israel, and then Israel in possession of Torah. So this Israel in possession of Torah is specifically in light of them being bonim, right? It's not, Torah was not given to any man. Torah specifically was given to the bonim, to the sons of Hashem, right? So there's a direct correlation between Matan Torah and Klal Yisrael, right? So good. Okay, so we'll come back to this in a second. So that's what he's saying here. He's saying here that the relationship with Hashem and Klal Yisrael is the relationship of a father to his son, right? And again, that connects to Matan Torah, that we say really that until Matan Torah was given, the world was in a state of In a state of incompletion, right? The world was in a state of incompletion. It's only when the Torah was given that the world became, The world became purposeful, right? And so, fine. So, okay, let's see how that plays in here. Okay. So Hine HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael hu ke'av el benoi. Hashem with Klal Yisrael is like a father to his children, u'ki'ish el eishes ne'urav, but also like a man to his beloved wife. Asher kol shukosoi is baruch eleinu. Hashem's whole shuka, his whole entire yearning, is to us. I mean, obviously, this is Hashem created for himself a role that his approach to to Klal Yisrael as one of total, total emotional dedication. Ke'inyan shene'amar ani l'doidi, I am to my beloved, ve'olai truka soy, and his truka, his yearning is towards me. Uksiv, and it's also written, your wonders and your thoughts are towards us. And it also says, I will turn towards you, and I will increase you, right? All of those blessings that are said in Parshas B'chukosai. That is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu desires Kaviyochel, as if to say, Hashem wants to bask and enjoy and kind of have nachas from his creations and rejoice within them. It's said before the pasuk that Hashem rejoices in his creations. And since he's the kind of like directs himself towards them. From as a result of his love for them, and from the happiness that he rejoices in them, he thinks thoughts. He constantly thinks of ways to benefit them and to increase them. That's what this pasuk is saying. Meaning, he's saying the pasuk says, "I turn towards them." Where is it saying? The Chumash says. Upanisia alechem, right? I will turn towards you. Ve'ifreisi eschem, and I will make you fruitful. Ve'irbeisi eschem, I will increase you. Ve'akimoisi es brisi etchem, and I will set up my bris, my covenant etchem with you. Right? So the pasuk is saying that my whole direction is towards you, and since my whole direction is towards you, I want to make you more bountiful and more numerous. Okay, good. And Hashem constantly renews His goodness for them. One shefa, one emanation after another. In the best way that's possible for their benefit, for their rectification and their benefit. In the same way that a father thinks when he turns in his love towards his son. Right, so again, his father is constantly thinking how to benefit his son. Again, in other words, even when his father is disciplining his son, but at the same time, it's towards the benefit of his son. Now, again, that's for creations in general, but the beginning, the main source, the core of that is Klal Yisrael. Kilahem ta'avosai. Because it's towards them that he has this taiva. I am to my beloved, and he is his chuka, his yearning is towards me. The kol shar habriya tluya rak b'hem, and the rest of the creation really depends on them. Right? So Klal Yisrael is the prism through which the rest of the creation receives the blessing from Hashem. Right? In other words, Hashem directs himself towards Klal Yisrael, and through them he directs himself towards his entire creation. But the first initial prism through which that connection, that love is received is Klal Yisrael. When Hashem turns towards them with love, when Hashem turns to Klal Yisrael with love, then he blesses the rest of the world and renews his good blessings, good tidings towards the rest of the world. True good benefits and perfect ones, right? So in other words, if Hashem is good to if Klal Yisrael technically is good to Hashem, then Hashem responds with His love to Klal Yisrael, and the rest of the world benefits. If there is a rift between Hashem and Klal Yisrael, that Jews suffer and the rest of the world suffers with them. Okay, so good. So Amnam again is going to explain this a little more. Amnam kasha havera. The avera is tough. That it causes such that Hashem turns away from Klal Yisrael. And like a husband that gets angry at his wife. So it's interesting that he always, so there's two modes of relationship that he brings into comparison to Klal Yisrael and Hashem, right? It's a father and a son, and a husband and a wife, right? And these are, meaning both are true, right? Meaning each, obviously, there's very different kinds of relationship. The relationship that a father has towards his son, obviously, is not the same as the relationship that a man has towards his wife. But if you notice, originally, the first came the father and the son, and then the later came the husband and the wife. When he introduced the parable. Now, on the anger side, it's the other way around. First comes the husband getting angry at his wife, and then comes the husband getting angry at his son. Right? In other words, it sounds like on a higher level of, what's the word? I guess you could say romance, right? There's a husband and wife relationship, and that's maybe it's a second stage of a higher level of closeness to some degree. But at the same time, at its core, right, because they're not relatives, they're not the same flesh and blood, they're different bodies technically, not like a son and a father who are the same DNA, right? So it's much easier, so to speak, to sever that relationship than the relationship between a father and a son. Okay, and regarding that time it says, meaning when Hashem is upset at Klal Yisrael, the Torah calls this state Hashem is sad in his heart, right? In other words, he withdraws within himself, right? You disassociate. You're angry at your wife, you close up, right? You close up. So when Hashem is angry at Klal Yisrael, he closes up. He gets sad in his heart. Because that's the state when he's not happy over the world and his creations. And as a result, he withdraws the hashpah. He withdraws the hashpah. Okay? V'soro ha'hatzola, and and the success is removed. Chas v'sholom nimtza kibrias hara einon neiledes ele mehester haponim. And again, it comes out that the creation of Ra is brought about from the hester haponim, from Hashem's concealing His face. Sheha'odam baruch hu leipona ba'ahava legabe atachtonim. When Hashem does not turn with love towards the lower creations, and He's not happy with them. Now that's the source of all the absence of Ashpo that we mentioned. Betiri. One second. Meaning, just going back to, if the beginning of Mesilas Yesharim, right? If you remember the beginning of Mesilas Yesharim, the first chapter, he says that the first thing in the beginning, the start of Avodas Hashem starts with to know what is the obligation of man in this world, right? That's the first famous line of Mesilas Yesharim. And what's the answer to the question? What is Lisanik Hashem? Very good. It is to rejoice in Hashem, right? To rejoice in Hashem, right? So in other words, Hashem really created the whole world for His creations to be able to bask in His presence, right? But He created this situation where He Himself, so to speak, puts Himself into a position where He Himself gets also joy from when His creations rejoice in His presence. Okay? So then why didn't He then just give them all of this joy? Why didn't he give them all of this joy? Right? So the answer, so the Ramchal explains this more in Derech Hashem, that you can't just give it as a gift, you gotta earn it. Right? So again, so we discussed why do you have to earn it? Why do you have to earn it? So in Derech Hashem, he says the idea that if Hashem is if your whole what's the word? Your whole design is to become like Hashem in order to earn this lisaneg al Hashem, right? Just to connect to connection, right? And Hashem is perfect. One of the elements of perfection is being independent, right? Being self-sustaining. Hashem is the only existent that exists imperatively. It's not dependent on anybody else. If your whole lisaneg al Hashem comes as a gift from Hashem, then you didn't earn. It's not yours. It's not yours. It's not yours. So therefore, by giving you a chance to earn it, you are becoming more similar to Hashem in a sense that your existence in Olam Haba is self-made. You're a self-made man. Okay? So again, so we learned the idea, right? Meaning Hashem could have given it as a gift, right? He could have given it as a gift, but instead of giving it as a gift, he wanted to do it on a higher level. He said, I want you to earn it. I want you to earn it. But it's really so. I was listening to the Shiva Ran Shechter Zatzal. He said, if it's he was saying from the Pachad Yitzchak is that if it's not earned, it's not pleasure. That we have a concept in the world, right? That pleasure is just the opposite. I don't want to do anything. I want to do nothing. That's the pleasure is when I enjoy something without doing anything. Okay, but that's in reality that's complete falsehood. That's why there is such Yetzer Hara of taivas, of pleasure, of things that I just enjoy without any effort. That's if a person understood that the whole concept of pleasure is connecting to Hashem, and that by definition can only be earned, right? So if it's not earned, it's not real pleasure. There's no such thing as a pleasure that you didn't earn. That's not pleasure. It's nothing. It's pathetic. It's like, yes, you can earn your bread, or you can as you said, you can earn your bread like a bread, crumbs that are thrown in front of pigeons. It's not on the same level. It's not that there is enjoyment without earning it. You're earning it, and there is enjoyment with earning it. Without earning it, it's not yours. It's not pleasure. It's not yours. It's not. You didn't. If you didn't earn it, it's not your pleasure. If you didn't earn it, it's not your pleasure. So my point is that this concept of earning your pleasure, so to speak, really was brought into the world with Matan Torah, when the Jews were selected for this role of Bonim Atem LaHashem, that you are sons to Hashem. Okay, fine. Let's just continue. So now. Good. Vatiri, it's pretty warm,
Yeah.
Is it warm? You want to turn on the AC a little bit? Vatiri. Okay. So now he's saying something. Now he's going to say something that I'm not sure how far you can take this idea. Let's see. V'tiri ki be'emes tzofa Kodesh Baruch Hu maseim shel tzadikim maseim shel rashanim. Now he says in truth, Kodesh Baruch Hu tzofa. Tzofa means like he looking in a distance. He no, I don't know what's the English word that they use for the word tzofa.
Look ahead.
Okay, so there's no very. It's like Tzofa would be the word like you look from the top of a mountain and you are, or tzipiyah, we say tzipiyah li Yeshua. Did you look forward to salvation, right? Tzofa means looking at it far ahead in the future, right? So he says, "V'tirek be'emes tzofa HaKadosh Baruch Hu." HaKadosh Baruch Hu peered, he looked ahead, Masehim shel tzadikim, Masehim shel rashoim, towards the actions, the deeds of tzadikim, and to deeds of rashoim. B'ninyan zeh limdu oisonu Rabbi Yisroel Feldstein b'medrash. This concept was taught to us by our rabbis in the medrash. She'omru mitchilas briyos. So let's see the medrash again. Let's see the medrash. Medrash is very cryptic, but it doesn't say more really than the Ramchal. I mean, a little more than the Ramchal, but not. Okay. Omer Rabbi Yanai. So Rabbi Yanai says, mitchilas briyos shel olam. From the beginning of the creation of the world, Tzofa HaKadosh Baruch Hu peered, Masehen shel tzadikim, towards the acts, the deeds of tzadikim, or Masehen shel rashoim, and towards the deeds of rashoim. Okay, continues. Then it reads it into the psukim. The pasuk says, "Va'oretz oisa toihu." The oretz, the land, was toihu. Eilu Masehen shel rashoim. This refers to the acts of rashoim. By Yomer Lekim Yor, and then God said, "Let there be light." Eilu Masehen shel tzadikim. This refers to the deeds of tzadikim. Hashem separated between the light and the darkness. That is referring to separation between Masehen shel tzadikim and Masehen shel rashoim, between the acts of tzadikim and the acts of rashoim. Vayikra lekim le'or yoim. Hashem called the light day. Eilu gam Masehen shel tzadikim. These are the acts of tzadikim. And to the darkness he called night. These are the Eilu Masehen shel rashoim. And then he says, "Vayi erev Eilu Masehen shel rashoim." Right? "Vayi boiker Eilu Masehen shel tzadikim." Yom echad, day one. What's the day one referring to? Shenosan lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yom echad. Hashem gave to them, in other words, to rashoim, one day. The Eizazeh. What day is that? Anybody? What day do you think Hashem gave to rashoim? The answer is Yom Kippurim. Okay, so that's the medrash. Again, very cryptic medrash. So the way Ramchal, let's see how Ramchal understands it. So mitchilas again. So he said again, v'tirik siki be'emes tzofa HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mashem shel tzadikim Mashem shel rashoim. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked ahead, right? So again, looking ahead right away I think it already raises questions in my mind, right? Because this question knowledge and freedom of choice and all of those questions start popping into my head. From the beginning of creation of the world, look at the acts of tzadikim and rashoim. In another place in the Medrash said, what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? Hashem kind of removed the ways of rashoim from the front of right in front of his face. V'shitev bo rachamav, and so he kind of paired up his rachamim, his mercy, with and uboroi, and then he created the world. V'hainu, what does that mean? Ki kol brias ha'olam, that the entire creation of the world, mitchila, from the very beginning, hoisa b'derech tzifias asidos, was in the way of looking forward towards the future. Okay? Ki hoya tzoife mashe hoya osid liyos. Hashem looked ahead to see what will be. V'hoya misakin sidorim l'tzoirech kol ha'osid. And he was misakin, he was arranging sidorim, arrangements. He was setting up arrangements l'tzoirech kol ha'osid, with the need of the future in mind. Okay? So v'hinei b'tzifias maseh tzadikim, when it came to looking towards the acts of tzadikim, Hashem had simcha, b'noilad mizeh kol sidur ha'hashpo ha'toiva, and the result of that simcha that Hashem looked towards the future and he saw the acts of tzadikim, that brought about all types of hashpo, which is good. B'tzifias ma'aseh rashoim, and when Hashem looked ahead at the acts of rashoim, that is what caused kol ha'eder hashpo ve'ha'kilkul. That is what caused all of the absence of hashpo and all of the destruction. So, again, I don't know. Tell me how you want to understand this, right? But he's saying that, going back even to what he said before, that Hashem created the world in two avenues, let's say, right? Hashpah and absence of hashpah. That hashpah and absence of hashpah was triggered by I don't know how to say it, but the creation of that hashpah and absence of hashpah was triggered by the future, which he looked ahead before.
Right, but to him,
there's
there's no future and there's no past, right? But the eventual
but it's more than just there's no future and there's no past, because I'm creating. It's basically, I'm gonna throw a ball, okay, and before I throw it, I estimate whether or not my son is going to catch it, right? But I didn't yet create the son, and I didn't make a throw, but I'm creating the son to match, to match the kind of throw, So I don't know exactly. It's a never-ending feedback loop. I don't know exactly how this works.
Yeah, but that's what he was talking about. Like hashpah comes down, it's affected by the clouds, are going to react and send it back up.
Yeah, but I understand that once the system is in place, I get it. But over here, he's saying something more. He's saying the very creation to begin with was caused by the future cloud shell, which hasn't been created yet. So I don't know. I'm not sure how to.
Yeah, but
it's very interesting.
Yeah, but now again, the same time as
Yeah, but it's more than just time, because I am changing my creation based on the choices of the created, which I haven't yet created.
Right. I'm buying a car now, hedging that I'm going to receive a large bonus for the job that I just got, assuming that I'm going to do great at the job and I'm going to get a great bonus. So I'm buying the car right now.
I mean, it's a good parable, except it's a little different, because the job doesn't exist, the car doesn't exist.
No, but
none of this exists.
I know that. I got the job. So I'm buying the car because the job promised me a large bonus if you do well.
Again, that I understand.
I'm going to get a large
that
bonus.
I perfectly understand. But again, there is no job, there's no car, there's no bonus, there's nothing yet. So
yeah, but he knows that it's going to be.
Well, again, that's a question.
Nothing like knows.
I don't even know how to say.
He's making it. No,
so,
he's
making
it. Let's say I'm sick, okay? So now I wake up in the morning and I don't feel up to going to shul, right? So I decide to sleep it in. Let's say I have a cold. Let's say I wasn't sick, but I have a cold. But the cold gave me an additional, so to speak, Yetzer Hara of not going to shul. Okay. So what we seem to be saying is that Hashem created, knowing that I'm going to fail in the test of going to shul. Fast forward gave me that cold to begin with, so that I had the nisayon of not going to shul, and therefore I failed the nisayon of not going to shul. But then he's going to hold me responsible for not going to shul, for the extra nisayon which he gave me, which I really probably would have failed anyways had he not given me. I mean, again, the amount of loops here that I can't keep up. But this I get the concept.
Okay. Anyways, but it just means that. But it also means that we have no clue as to how to judge any situation, because you see yourself as I didn't go to. Why didn't you go to shul today? I was sick. What do you mean? That's why I didn't go to shul. No, idiot. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw in the very beginning of the creation that you weren't going to go to shul anyways. So he sent you that cold to begin with, and you know what? Who's going to be responsible for not going to shul? Not the cold. You.
Because from the very beginning of creation, that code only materialized because you weren't going to go to shul in the first place without the code. So
No, that is the previous book. So no matter how much you calculate, you're gonna be wrong. So that's pretty much that's
but at the same time, how he's calculate. All he's doing is calculating.
yeah, but he tells you like you're still gonna be wrong. That's how he started last book.
No, I understand that, but okay. Anyways, let's see. Let's keep going. Because I jumped a little bit, kind of fast forward a little bit here too. Okay, so V'hainu again, kol brias ha'olam etchilas hoiso b'derech tzifias ha'asidus. The entire creation of the world from the beginning was in such a way that of looking forward to creation. Ki hoya tzoife, HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked ahead, mashe hoya osliyos, to see what was going to be ahead. V'hoya mesakin sdoim tzorech kolos, and he was creating a framework for the need of all the future in mind. V'hinei v'tzviyas ma'aseh tzedikim hoyso hasimcha lo yisbarach. Hashem had happiness. V'noilad mizeh kol sidur ha'hashpara tova, and from that the entire arrangement of the good emanations was created. U'b'tzviyas ma'aseh rishoyim, and from looking ahead to the acts of rishoyim, kol ha'eder ha'hashpara v'ha'kilkul, the absence of hashpara and the destruction. U'mishom v'hola, and from then on, nishar choyk ha'anhoga b'derech zeh. And from then on, the routine of hanhaga, of that framework, let's call it, remained. That the acts of tzadikim will bring forth happiness. And that's the source of all the goodness. Will sadden the heart. And that's the source of all the negatives. V'tiri, and now let's look. Kilulei hoyu ha'adam baruch hu tzoife v'hoylech b'maseh rishoyim. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not look at the acts of the wicked, lo hoyu le'olam kiyum klal, there would be no kiyum, there would be no sustaining of the world at all. Ela haniach ma'aseh rishoyim, he would leave alone the acts of the wicked, because they are not eternal. But rather they cease and they are nullified. And he held on to the acts of the tzaddikim, because they are the ones who remain forever and ever. It's with them that he created the world and sustained it. It's through them that Hashem set up a system that the good continues to strengthen and increase. I didn't exactly read this right, meaning not that without the Rishon. I'm sorry. If Hashem would only look at the acts of Rishoyim, then there would be no way for the world to exist. But it's because he combined to Rishoyim and Tzadikim together, and Tzadikim their actions are eternal, while Rishoyim actions are very limited. So therefore, the world continues to improve and increase in goodness. But nimtza be'emes, so what comes out in truth, shekol sidrei ha'hanhoga ha'elyoina, that all the arrangements of the hanhoga of Hashem's guidance from above, the kol tol doiseha, miyusodim rak al Yisrael, is really founded only upon Israel. Bifnois tuvo yizbarach lahem be'ahava, whether Hashem will turn His goodness towards them with love, or bifnois mehem chas v'sholem. V'nimtza, again, v'nimtza, and comes out, Heim levadam ha'ikar b'chol ha'briya kula. Really, they are the most essential of the entire creation. B'kol ha'shar tluyim bom, and everything else is dependent on them. V'loi a'arich ata b'zen. I will not expand on this more. Ma shetzorech le'nyanenu hu shezacharti b'tchila. What we need for our purpose is what I mentioned above. When Hashem turns with love to the lower creations, then all the rectification of Hashpah is magnified. And the opposite results when he turns away from them. So again, so I'm not. So I'm not sure. He did not explain at this point why Jews.
Why they were picked?
Right. Meaning the only thing is he's equating he's explaining a little bit, meaning since, right? What I'm understanding is that since he said that from the very beginning of creation, Hashem kind of looked ahead into the future, again, which I don't fully understand because it's a never-ending loop. But let's say Hashem looked into the future, and he saw tzaddikim and he saw Rishoyim, right? And the entire universe from the very beginning was created in a way that produces light as due to actions of tzaddikim, and reduces light due to actions of Rishoyim, right? So technically, it didn't have to be Jews, any tzaddikim and any Rishoyim, right? But at the same time, the history resulted such that the tzaddikim turned out to be Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov within the history of the world, right? And they kind of selected the path forward. So therefore, from the very beginning of creation, the world was designed with them in mind, right? That's why Bereshis is Bishvil Yisrael Sheni Bereshis. Behibaram is Avraham, right? Hashem's creation is Avraham. So, in essence, again, I don't know how to say this because he designed the world, so he could have designed it any way he wanted to. But he designed the world. I can't say. I don't know. There's logical inconsistency there. But the world's design from the beginning was for its reality. Meaning the reality that we experienced was already, I guess, predetermined. Get backwards. I can't say it. I don't know how to say it. It's you throw the ball into the air, the basket appears after the ball is thrown, but you know that the basket will appear after because you're going to throw the ball. I can't. So it seems to be what he's saying is technically it didn't have to be Jews. It could have been any tzaddikim versus any Rishoyim, but it happens to be that in this version of the world, let's put it this way, maybe there's multi-universe, I don't know, and maybe there is a universe out there that's not Jews. Maybe there is, a very DEI universe out there that I'm not familiar with. But in this universe, the tzaddikim turned out to be Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Moshe, Aaron, and all those people that selected the path forward in this direction. And as a result, since HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with that future in mind, so the very first word, Bereshis, already had the Jews kind of built into that system. Anyways, fine, so good. So So until this point, we have completed everything that's basically the basic essentials needed to know as far as the creation of evil. So at least I know that this is how. So from the beginning of evil, which was somewhere. Where was the beginning of evil? The beginning of evil was in number 96. So I know at least from 96 to 130 is where I'm still kind of incomplete. But he says, "V'adheina hishlamno," and up to this point, we completed whatever is necessary for creation of evil. Now to know that, to understand the creation of evil. Now we will explain what Hashem arranged, created, is Baruch Shmoy Tikunoi, for its rectification. Ulavira min abriya, right? Because again, from the very beginning, if you go back to 96, he says over here, we need to understand the concept. What is this existence of evil? In Yonoi, its concept. We told those of its effects. In which way it is strong. In which way it is cut down, like that parable that he gave of a rock in a fork in the road, right? That the king wants removed, and he says, "Okay, you start, and then I'll finish the job," right? So again, so this is still, so we're not completely. We're just only covered the first part of that plan, which is the creation of evil. Now he's going to talk about the second part of that plan, which is the removal of evil. So now we're going to talk about litikunoi, right? The rectification, la'avira min abriya, to remove it from creation. Liyois kol hanimtzoyos misaknim mistaknim, that all of the creations will be rectified. Atachlis atikun hasholem, to the ultimate rectification, sheyilo aslo, which will be in the future. Okay. Va'amnam, however, mashu tzorich l'das tchila. How are we doing on time? Okay, we'll just read one paragraph, I guess. Va'amna mashu tzorich l'das tchila hu she'af al pi shechidash harotzin ha'elin esek ilkulim k'mo she'barnu kvar. We need to know ahead of time that even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu innovated all of these kilkulim, all of these destructions, k'mo she'barnu kvar, as we already explained, Hashem did not intend to leave them around. And then, on the contrary, He wants to remove them. And to bring forward after them the perfect rectification. Therefore, therefore, He decreed that this kilkul, that this destruction, cannot create a total destruction. Ela yashir zecher min hamizbatel. Shelo yashir zecher min hamizbatel. Should not remove memory from the nullified. Ela aval also shiyah kilkulim sheyichol nesak. And therefore, He created these destructions in a way that they are able to be fixed. Ki tiskayim havayos hanivroim afilu b'soich hakilkulim. So the first way He did that is that He made sure that the existence of His creations remain even within the state of destruction. Ad shetoshuv le'esona, k'choilo hamisrape, until they return to their original state, like a sick person who gets cured. Right. So in other words, so the first thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did is He put a limit to the amount of the destruction, to the amount of damage that evil can cause, right? So until here is the limitation of evil, right? So evil, which is kilkul in this paragraph, kilkul, which is destruction only, has its limits. V'tirei amitas hadover hazeh b'chol divrei olam, and look at the truth of this idea in all of the aspects of the world. Ki lo husmu hakilkulim la'abed hatov, that the kilkulim were not placed to destroy the good, ela le'avois, but rather to, let's say, distort, to make it crooked. Ve'achar yistalku, but then they are removed. V'yoshev hatoiv le'esonoi, and the good can come back to its original state. Re'i afilu hamisa. So look, even death, shehi habitul hayoser godel sheboilo, which is nullification, right? It was destruction that's the greatest that could exist in the world. Eina bitul gomer, even that is not total. Because because there is a concept called Tchias HaMeisim, revivification of the dead. Shafal pish haguf shovli offers, even though that the body goes into the ground. Hine haluz sheboy miskayim kiyadua. Right? So there's a concept in Jewish thought, there's a certain bone called luz, right? And that luz remains and it does not get
Composed.
right, does not decompose, from which, right? So there's something, some remnant remains even in the greatest destruction, which is death, right? So livnois mimenu haguf hahu atzmai. So that from there the body will be rebuilt. So certainly anything that's less than death, she'eina bittul gomer vaday, that it's not a complete bittul. Ela miskalkel, it's destruction, right? It's destruction, but v'yochel litaken, there is still an ability to be litaken, to be rectified. Okay, so these are very, very, again, far-reaching words. Right? This becomes, so the concept of Tchias HaMeisim, first of all, within the Jewish framework, is better understood. Meaning, before we understood from one perspective, the perspective of neshama in the body, and how the neshama gets its schar, and the body gets its schar, and the body can only get its schar after decomposition and rectification. That's one understanding of Tchias HaMeisim. Over here, it gives us another understanding of Tchias HaMeisim, that meaning that without the concept of Tchias HaMeisim in the world, this whole idea of rectification would not be possible, right? If you want rectification, there has to be Tchias HaMeisim, right? Because otherwise you're creating an evil that is total destruction. And to say that no, there is no total destruction. Everything has its positive in the future, right? So even death is not complete. There's no such thing as complete death. Again, in practice, I don't know. Meaning, this isn't concept. In practice, maybe there is. I don't know. I don't know what happens to people who get incinerated. Who get incinerated in fires. I have no idea. Hashem will solve that problem. Leo Khan will figure it out. But I'm just saying. But in theory, in the framework, right? In the framework, there is a concept called Tchias HaMeisim. It has to be in our Jewish understanding of framework, because Tchias HaMeisim is an essential formula in the way the world is designed, right? Without that essential formula, the whole system is incomplete, right? It's not just we have this weird bug or feature, whatever you call it, that's called Tchias HaMeisim, right? It's a nice thing. Okay, Jews dreamed up this idea that there has to be rectification of the dead. Ramchal is saying no, it's not just a nice feature. It's an essential element in the design of this universe, of the balance between good and evil. There has to be this concept called Tchias HaMeisim, otherwise the whole program is messed up. Okay, so on that note, we'll stop here.